Good morning, and welcome to Sunday Soul Day, weekly fuel for your mind, body, and soul. Today, we sit down with Carissa Montooth, an international speaker, dating coach, and energy healer. Carissa shows successful single women how to attract and date marriage-minded men without self-sabotage. Through a combination of practical strategies and powerful energetic healing techniques, she helps her clients identify their blind spots in love, heal their subconscious blocks to love, and understand men to navigate the dating world with ease. Welcome to Sunday Soul Day, Carissa.
Thank you so much, Demisha. I'm so excited to be with you today.
Me too. I could not wait for this conversation.
Me
The first time I came across you and your background and everything, your content was you were on the Pedro and Prius show,
Yeah.
and I was so like just amazed by that conversation. I think I texted him right after and was like, "Who is this woman?" Like it was such a beautiful
Oh,
conversation that you guys had, and I love the series that you guys did.
I love Pedro. It's so great talking to him, and he knows he knows the things that people want to know. So he's great at asking those questions. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, you guys did a beautiful job. Well, my audience may or may not be as familiar with you. So I would love to just start with your background. What inspired you and kind of motivated you to pursue this career as a love coach and an energy healer?
Right.
And also,
Because
what
it's
does
kind
that mean? What does that
of
mean to
yeah,
be an
it's
energy
kind of
healer?
a
Let's
weird
let's start there.
idea, right? And it's not the kind of thing where when you grow up and you go to school, people are like, "This is the career path, the academic path that's going to prepare you to be a healer," right? So for me, it was kind of like twofold, right? I grew up in a family of healers. I'm a sixth generation healer. So going back to my great grandma, on my mom's side, we were always really spiritually awake, spiritually aware women, herbalists, dowsers, midwives, root workers. We were always those people, and going back in my family. And as a kid, I thought it was weird, right? Because you always think things like that. You want to fit in, when you're a kid, right? So I remember thinking first, that it was just kind of normal. But then as I got older, wondering if I was going to kind of be judged for that. So I knew that I wanted to help people, but I decided I was going to go sort of like the academic route, right? So I got my degree in psychology, I got my degree in counseling, and I started to work in a community college. And I was teaching courses that were about matching personality type with career choice. And I had written a book about it and everything. But what I found was that women were coming up to me during, like after class, and they were asking me, they're like, well, I'm this particular personality type, and my partner's this personality type. How do you think we can have, yeah, like, do they match? Like, how can we have these conversations about like committing, or, do you think that we'd be good to get those kinds of conversations? And I was thinking, I know what they're really asking me. And I know kind of the fear behind that that's motivating them to ask me, and that's actually a deeper thing that we need to heal, but we can't do that in this setting. So I started to create my own coaching practice on the side of what I was doing as counseling. And at a certain point, there was really so much more demand for that's what I went to go do. And you know, the combination of having the academic background and also having the healing background has been so helpful for my clients, because it's more than just like, let's have the breakthrough, or let's figure out what dating app you should use, or how you should write your profile, or like, it's more than that. It's like, how do we actually become that whole version of ourselves that attracts that love that we really want to have and sustains that relationship, you know?
Oh my gosh, you said so much there, especially around, being a whole version of ourselves. And I think that because, women especially, I'm not going to take away from men, but I can only speak for myself as a woman. Women, we tend to give so much,
We do.
compromise, give, and we forget ourselves. And so, what I'm coaching my clients, I'm a coach as well, is around really healing yourself, but serving from a more whole place, and the only way to do that is to work on yourself. And so,
Absolutely.
so I love that you mentioned that. Well, you talked about your clients, like who do you serve? Can you provide kind of some insight into kind of the clients and, what they can expect in maybe a coaching session with you?
Yeah, so I usually have my clients are in kind of two camps.
Okay.
So in one group, I have clients who maybe got married very young and didn't have a lot of dating experience. And as the relationship kind of fell apart, they stayed together as long as they could for the kids. But then when the relationship ended, they were really devoted to just making sure that they raised their kids. They're like, I've got to get my kids through high school. And then they get to a point where now their kids are graduating and they're able to have the time and the energy and the focus to kind of give that back to themselves and think, okay, now what do I want from this point forward in my life? How do I want to take care of myself from this point forward? And they're not afraid anymore that, like, well, if I date, it's going to take time away from my kids, and what if they don't get along, and those kinds of things. Those aren't foremost in their mind anymore. They're able to make themselves the most important person in their life for the first time in a really long time. So that's one group of women that I work with. And another group of women that I work with are really high achieving women. A big chunk of them never been married. They usually are responsible for a lot of people kind of reporting to them. And they have a kind of life that really looks great on paper to other people outside of it, but they feel like it's difficult for them to connect with men who are on their level, because a lot of the men who are interested in them, they feel like it's usually like younger. For some reason, they have a lot of relationships with younger men who they have a really great physical connection with, and they can travel with them and they do all of these things, and it's really exciting. But then when it comes to the place of like creating a life together, those men are not quite on their level, and they get tired of, you know, financing this lifestyle, right? They're tired of like paying for their younger boyfriend to travel with them so that they don't have to travel by themselves. They just are tired of that, and they want a partner who's their equal, that they can build with, and who wants the same things that they want and is at the same place in their lives. And a lot of those women, you know, they don't really want to date somebody that they work with because work is going really, really well, and I don't want to mess anything up there. But a lot of times their focus is really like so much work that work is almost really the only thing that they're doing, besides maybe they're going to the gym and sometimes they see their girlfriends, you know. So those are the two groups of women that I work with for the most part, and it's pretty consistent. It's usually someone that's in one of those two groups.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I've actually been in both of those groups at some point in
I
my life.
know, right?
So that's hilarious. But I've dated younger and older,
Mhm.
guys. I've been the breadwinner in relationships, and it's hard. It's like, when you're trying to, chase your dreams and chase climbing the corporate ladder and learn. For me, it was really learn as much as I could. I always felt like I was, behind in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And so I felt like I always had to learn a lot, a lot, a lot, so I really dove in deep into my work, my craft, and just understanding, how to even run a company, so it was, I can imagine like women, as well, like in my position. And I've seen it, working in a people leader role where, you have so many single women,
Mhm.
at the top.
Yeah.
And even if they are married, and a lot of times they weren't very happy,
Yeah.
so it's
Well,
just so interesting.
yeah, and a lot of times when they come to me and they're trying to describe how they feel, they say, I don't know how many women have said this to me, and I feel really honored that they feel safe communicating with me in this way, because what they will say is, I just really want to get to be the girl in my relationship. And I'm like, I understand what you mean. I know what you're saying. Like, I understand what that means, for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's when you're carrying all those loads, like for me, I made every decision, in my
Yeah.
department, as a leader, like, I mean, not every, but you know what I mean, like the
Yeah.
majority of the decisions. And coming home, it was like the same thing, planning
Yeah.
vacations, planning
There's,
this, doing that. It's like, when do I get a mental break, from this, like when
yeah.
are you going to kind of step up? And I tried to create a space, but in some cases, I find that some men don't want it. they also don't want to carry the load. So
Yeah, right. Like, and it's tricky because it's about first believing that those men who want to um balance with you are actually there in the world. And then it's having that belief that you deserve to have a partner like that, that that's possible for you, to have a partner who is looking for an equal, not like somebody to take over and make all of the decisions, or somebody to, kind of completely give up all of her own power and just kind of let them call all of the shots. It's like we're looking for healthy interdependence.
yes, I love that. Yes, I
Yeah.
could not agree more. And I've learned that, I've had, not so serious relationships and serious relationships, and I've learned a ton throughout the process. But I also learned so much about myself. Like that's what I was attracting in because that's what I believed, like was good for me at that time, but a large part of this and what I really stress to, really any woman is learn yourself,
Hmm.
and understand like that you matter and like your needs like can be met by someone
Hmm.
and it's okay to wait for that, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me I've always been a giver naturally
Hmm.
and so happy to do that. And so I didn't always think that I deserved that in return,
Yeah.
and sometimes would find myself in situations where I was overgiving, you
Yeah, and
know.
you can give yourself into a corner
Oh,
where it's like
100%, 100.
you're like, well, who's going to give to me? Because everyone gets so used to you being the one.
Ex-
Yeah.
exactly. And that was really the mantra for a lot of my relationships. And I learned that, it's okay to still be that, but then you also need to create a space for that person to give to you too. So
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we can talk so much about this. But I love your community. I'm in your Facebook community. Tell me a little bit about that because I do think the community piece is so important. Like you're working individually with clients, but it's also like so wonderful for women to come together as well. Tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Well, like you said, it's wonderful, it's healing, and it's affirming because you go, oh, okay, there are other amazing women like me who are having the same challenges, and I think that that's such an important piece because so many times we feel really isolated and we feel like it's just me, and but when we can see that other people feel the same way, or other people have had the same challenges, and we can see them move through them as well, we're like, that can happen for me too. And one of the things I really love about this group is that, the women who come into this group, they are women who get that healing is important. They get that the healing is what matters and makes the difference. And they're not, there's a way of thinking about dating where it's like, how do I game the system? And there are a lot of people out there that are giving advice about that. How do you get him to XYZ? Or if he's not doing this, how do you, get things back on track kinds of questions, right? And what I do with the women that I work with is that I help them come out of that whole mindset. Like that whole rat race is like this illusion where no one ever really feels seen. No one ever really feels that they have an authentic connection. You're always worried that there's going to be the connection is very superficial, and you're always worried that you're going to be replaced, or that if you're not perfect, if you're not on all the time, if you're not whatever. And that world really caters to a lot of common insecurities that women have, you know, um,
Well, and
which is basically
also caters to the like almost like the Band-Aid version of dating. It's like
absolutely.
and that's where I'm like I had to learn that because I was, a part of like thinking, oh, if I do this, then I do that, and that's really not
Mm,
how love works, because that's
no.
really what we're all here to be, to love and to be loved. And so
Yeah.
it's, it's not a band-aid, and it's really about learning yourself so then you can attract the right person for you and understand
Yeah.
your needs and then be able to articulate them more importantly. And so,
Yeah.
I wasn't always great at that, and I realized that like as a younger, my 20s, I wasn't great at articulating my needs or like even allowing myself because I dated from a place of like abandonment wound,
Right.
and so learning that, I had to work on healing that so I didn't
Yeah.
keep attracting, partners that weren't emotionally available to me. So,
Right, because that's what you're going to attract when you're in
yep,
that energy and that
yep.
wound is still unhealed. And what's crazy about it is that when you attract that person, it will feel like chemistry.
So
But really, it just is that we have the same wounds on a subconscious level, so you feel familiar to me, you know?
that is so, I've learned that. That is so beautifully said because that's exactly what it is. And I see it so many times in relationships, from friends, from even family, where they have the same wound and then they just make a life together based on
They
that
build a
wound.
life around it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and I
And
didn't
then
want that
it
for
can get
myself
locked
anymore.
into that too, because
Yes.
then it's like, well, we've built this thing together. If one of us heals, we're not going to be able to stay together, you
100%.
know, and there's actually like, there's this kind of this inertia that happens. So you actually don't move forward and heal because you'll lose everything that's familiar to you. The pull that we have as human beings to stay with what's familiar, even though it's miserable, is really strong. It's so powerful, and we underestimate it all the time,
Oh, yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
people are comfortable in pain,
yeah.
like as
Well,
long
we
as they're
learn how to be
together.
comfortable.
As long as
Yeah,
they're together,
as
like
long as
I'd
you don't
say,
have to be
and they're
alone.
so afraid of what's on the other side of healing,
Yeah.
and it's lonely sometimes, especially if you're the one partner that wants to go down that healing journey, it could be very lonely.
Yeah. Well, but we can even get comfortable with the pain of being alone. And
Oh,
so even the idea of being with someone else can feel like,
yeah.
I've worked with clients who've been alone for, a decade or two, you know, and are like, okay, well, it hasn't just happened. And so now I really need to actually look at this and think, is there something that I'm doing or not doing? Is there something that's left that I need to heal? Like, why am I still alone? You know, because we can get comfortable with anything really that we're in, any situation that we're in long enough, we can get comfortable with it. So I'm always so impressed and just so in awe really of those women because when they the what it took for them to go, I want to change this, is always such a huge thing. It's really a big thing. But as far as the community goes, yeah, it's such an amazing group of women because they're so supportive of each other is one of the things that I really love. And I am very careful about the energy of that group in terms of like it's a public group, but it's not open to everybody. So, and I'm very careful in terms of like the way people treat each other and protecting each other's privacy and just really making it a safe place. So the women who are there are very committed to their healing, and they do that in community in a way that is really inspiring to me.
Yeah, it is. You've done a beautiful job. I've been to some of your sessions, and you've done such a great job. And I love hearing the stories of women that finally find love, and they're so happy to share. And so
And
it is
everyone loves to
great.
celebrate with
Yeah,
them.
I
And
know. I love it.
yeah,
I love it. It's so
great.
beautiful. Well, you talked about messaging a little bit, and I want to touch on that because you hear so many things online between, people, there's podcasts with women hating men, and then there's podcasts with men hating women. And then you hear about how, oh, if you hit 40, it's going to be impossible to
Oh
find
my gosh,
someone,
that's the
you
thing.
know.
I
or
oh my
or don't on first dates, don't go if they take you to Cheesecake Factory. Like, I mean, the messaging is insane to me. Like,
It
I'm like, it's
really is.
so crazy.
And it's
Like,
nonstop. It's like,
nonstop. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, oh, if they take you on a coffee date, decline it. I'm like, what? I love coffee. I'm like, who came up with these rules? I'm like, do what works for you. Like,
Yeah.
you have to know you. And like,
Well,
for me, I love coffee. Take me on a coffee date,
I love that you said that. You're like, don't go on a coffee date, but I love coffee likewise, And I think the thing that we sometimes miss about that whole movement, right, is that it's it seems like it's just largely men who are doing a tough love kind of a thing. Like, I'm going to tell you the things that nobody else is going to tell you. And because I'm telling you the truth, you need to listen to what I'm saying, kind of a thing. Right. And making women feel insecure about our quote unquote marriageability or our quote unquote value is like shooting fish in a barrel, right? It's the easiest thing to do. It's like making new parents, well, American women particularly, but it's like making new parents feel like they're worried that they didn't do something right, as parents. It's like there are whole industries that are built around around creating a fear in people and then catering to this is how we're going to relieve that fear, right? And so there's a different kind of more insidious thing that I see with this whole, I call it the bros with microphones movement because it's always kind of like they got a mic and so they're going to do a podcast. They're not healed or especially mature or evolved or anything, but they've had a lot of bad experiences with women and they want to talk to you about it.
Oh yeah, and all the things you need to fix
All the things you
because
need
you're
to
broken.
you need to
Yeah,
be different
yeah,
or else you're going
exactly.
to be alone forever, and the reason you're alone now is because you're so picky, right? It's kind of like where they come from, and it's so strange, but there's a darker kind of side to that, because if you can make a woman feel that she is less than who she is, then you don't have to work very hard to be at her level. So
That is
it's kind of
so
like
well said. I'm sorry, I need to hit on that. That is so good. And that's exactly, repeat that in
there's
case
a
the audience
whole
missed it.
industry built around it. So it's like there's a group of men
Yeah.
who are really dedicated to making women feel that they are less than who they are, so that other men don't have to work to come up to those women's level, right? It's kind of like if you try to convince someone that, well, this car is all banged up and it's probably going to have the transmission have to be replaced. So you should take $5,000 off of it, right? And you were like real excited about that price of the car initially, right? That you're offering. It's kind of like that. I know that's like a kind of a clunky analogy to use, but it's kind of like they're just trying to make women feel like they're less than who they are because they don't want to have to live up to evolve or to grow. And I'm not even talking about financially specifically, right? Which is a part of it. And because women being able to choose and not having to choose men based on who can take care of you financially, right? That has created this situation where there are a lot of women who are perfectly fine taking care of themselves and being alone until the right person comes into their lives, right? So if you have all of these other men who are not really ambitious or not really achieving or not really invested in their own personal growth or their own spiritual evolution, they're going to be attracted to these women, but these women will not be available to them. So how do we then, as a group of men, convince these women that they should give us a chance? We try to tell them, well, you're not that great anyway, really. So you should really try to think about, lowering your standards so you don't have to be alone. And then sometimes in our lonelier moments or weaker moments, or when we're going through something, we might let that in. And now we have this fear, whether it's a subconscious fear or whether it's in our conscious mind, that's like, I am too old to have love, or nobody wants to be with a single mother, or I shouldn't tell men about my degrees because they're gonna be intimidated, or I shouldn't tell men how much money I make or let men know, how financially well off I am, because they're if they can't take care of me, or if they feel like they make way less than me, they're not going to be interested in me, or I'll attract men who want my money even more than I do. You know what I mean? Like, or want the lifestyle that it provides, so yeah, there's another part of it that's beyond just the I've had bad experiences with women, so I want to get on a mic and talk to everybody about what it is. There's this other kind of ugly, uh, I won't call it an organized social movement. It's more of like a cultural zeitgeist thing that's going on, where it's like it has some of its roots are in what's going on with us politically, as a country. Some of its roots have to do with socioeconomic things. But yeah, it's really ugly. And what it ends up impacting people individually is mostly it impacts women into thinking that like we're not the overarching message is your standards as a woman are too high. You are not worth all that. So you need to bring those down so you don't die alone. That's what's under all of that messaging. And we, as you know, we hear it loud and clear. But sometimes if women don't kind of point it, like identify it, if we don't call it out and go, okay, that's just manipulation because somebody's trying to, you know, um, somebody got rejected by a woman who was kind of going in different place in life than he was, and he was inspired to start a whole podcast over it so he could talk about her. you know
So true. It is so true. And I also think that because the messaging is so strong out there, right?
Mhm.
It really, messes with the mindset of women when it comes to dating. Like I have friends that are, some in wonderful marriages, some that are, heading into divorce, and some that have been single for years, like you talked about, myself included. I've been single for years. Um, I think when you have that messaging out there that's so strong, especially if you maybe haven't had kids or you feel like your biological clock is ticking, or,
Mhm.
all these things that we're told,
Yeah.
that
Kind of
it's
combines into
true,
a
but
perfect
but they're
storm.
yeah, it's like, but I think we need a reprogramming, like right now there's, and I'll side way to this one. It's like, it's kind of funny, but there's a message right now on the internet, I think, where it's like, if women are left in the woods, like would they choose a man or the
The
bear?
man or the bear.
Like, and so many women are saying they'll choose the bear. I'm like, the freaking bear. I'm like, it's hilarious, like, and also a little sad because I think we've gotten away from, just the values, and understanding, like, we're here to love and to be loved, and to support one another. So whatever
Yeah.
that looks like for you.
I think that really is what it speaks to, because it speaks to how disconnected we are in terms of like being able to trust, each other. So not just like men, can't trust women, or women just can't trust men, but we each can't trust each other. And part of that comes right back to dating too, because the advice about dating is like, how do you get this other person to do what you want? And it's because we date in a very weird way. It doesn't go strangers to lovers. It goes strangers to friends to lovers. And that friendship step is a step that a lot of us don't. We're literally on a first date looking at someone thinking, looking for reasons to choose them as a soulmate, right? Or to recognize them as a soulmate. It's a first date. You don't know anything about them. They don't know anything about you. But we don't go into situations like thinking about getting to know each other, thinking about establishing a friendship. We go into situations thinking about how we can turn it into this other thing. And we don't even know if we want that with this person yet, you know?
Can you
So
talk about that a little bit more? Because I know, like, I have friends that are on dating apps, and they're going on first dates. I'm not on any apps. If anyone sees me on apps, let me know, because I am not on any dating apps.
you're like, if you see me,
If
not
you
me.
see any profiles, it is not me, okay? But they're on all these dating apps. They're going on many, many dates, and I want to, like, talk about this from two perspectives, because from the man's perspective, I'm thinking that shit is expensive. You're taking all these women on dates. I'm like, go back to the coffee date, like, like
At least
it,
start with the
at
coffee
least
date.
start with the coffee date. I'm
Yeah.
like, they're going to like 5-star meals, and these women, it's like, look, I get that. Like, but you have to value you in a way that there's not a price on it.
Yeah, and I think the 5-star restaurant date is something that and I know that there are going to be some people that are upset about this.
I'm
But
sure.
I think that's something that we need to get away from a little bit in terms of first dates. I
Yeah.
think that sometimes what that feels like is, well, if he takes me out to this important, this expensive restaurant,
Yeah,
it's shorthand for me requiring him to prove that he values me, right? But
exactly
and I
right.
get that. And for people that love to do that, okay, do that. The problem is that you're in a situation then where the pressure is very heightened to make it a romantic situation. and there is less opportunity to just get to know each other authentically. So a better thing is, what hobby do you have? And you can, what do you like to do? Let's go do that together. You know what I mean? And then actually have the chance to do something together and get to know each other more, you
I
know?
love that. That's such great advice, So ladies, if you're listening, like,
Mhm.
I couldn't agree more, like, and also just I love just getting to know people in general. I find people very fascinating. And I really do believe in looking for more green flags, than just
Mhm.
red. Like a lot of times people are always looking for the red flag. And I remember this gentleman, I cannot remember this person's name to save my life, but he had such a great mindset around dating where he said, think of dating as like kind of like city blocks, right? There's lots of lights in cities, right? And he's like, when you see more green flags, you keep going, right?
Right.
But when you see kind of like a yellow flag or even a red flag, you pause
Mhm.
until you see more green flags.
Right.
And then you continue going. So I was like, I really love that thinking, but in order to do that, you need to take time to get to know them and kind of peel them back to get to their sweet spot.
Yeah. And you also need to change your goal of dating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're dating, a lot of times we're thinking, especially we do this as women, because women are the keepers of civilization. That's what we do. And we can take any situation and make the best out of it. It's like we excel at that. We're so good at that. But
Yes.
sometimes we
Been
don't
there,
think,
guilty.
yeah, but sometimes we're not thinking, is this a situation that I need to be trying to save, So I've had so many people who are like, how do I keep this from going off the rails? How do I get us back on track? And I'm like, you don't actually. What you do is you stay centered, you get to know this person, and if it looks like it's not a match, you can let that go with grace. You don't have to rescue that situation no matter what. It's like dating is the period of time when you're supposed to you're not committed and exclusive with someone when you're dating. That's not dating. That's a relationship. Dating is the period of time where you're getting to know that other person so that you can get enough information to make a decision about if you want to be exclusive and committed, right? And men understand that instinctively a lot better than women do because we're like, he didn't call me for a second date. He didn't even call me to tell me he didn't want to date me anymore. And it's like, well, you aren't in a relationship. He doesn't have to break up with you because you're not in a relationship. You went on one date or you went on two dates or, something like that. But we come into it with this mindset that's like, well, if we're dating and it's a first date, he better not be dating anybody else and I'm not going to date anybody else. And that means, we're dating. So now we're together. No, where dating is not exclusive and committed. Dating is, this is when I am learning about you and I'm letting you learn about me. And the other thing we have to get away from besides that premature commitment is this practice of trying to be our most perfect self. So not letting you know when I'm stressed about something, not letting that I've had a difficult day or that something made me sad, whether it has to do with this other person or not, like not really letting them see us, you know? And it does take time to be comfortable with someone and for someone to earn our trust so that that they've earned us being vulnerable with
Mhm.
them, right? But at a certain point, we do have to allow that to happen. We can't, because we can't love someone if we don't know them. We
No.
can't we can't expect someone to love us if we're not letting them know us. And I think that that's a big part where the healing comes in, because for so many of us, it is terrifying to think of letting someone know us to that extent and being that vulnerable with someone else, because all we're thinking is, but what if they hurt me the way that so and so did before? you know and so we don't allow our guard to come down enough for someone to actually know us, and we we're so motivated by that fear, that we can't actually move forward authentically, and we don't realize that that fear is something that needs to be addressed and that can be healed. We just think like, I just have to always have this wallet from now on. I guess that's how I have to function because now I know the truth about the world and how dangerous and scary it is. When it's really like, well, if we keep operating out of that fear, we're going to keep attracting things into our life that confirm that fear. We're going to keep having self-confirming evidence come in, for that particular belief because that's what energy we're in. So that's what we're going to notice in the world. That's what's going to feel familiar to us. That's what's going to pop out in color when everything else is in black and white is those things that feel familiar to us, even though they're hurtful.
Oh my gosh, you said so many. This is such a beautiful conversation, and I know you're going to help so many people, me included.
Oh,
You
good.
mentioned using energy healing multiple times to address kind of these beliefs of,
Yeah,
living in really fear. It's really the difference between living in fear and love, right?
yeah,
And a large part of how we date is very fear-based because it's
absolutely.
based on past experiences that we haven't healed from. So can you elaborate a little bit on how you use energy healing to help your clients kind of attract a more healthy, really mindset in dating
Yeah,
and a healthy relationship?
yeah, absolutely. So when I'm working with my clients, there are three things that we work on first. Oh, actually, and let me take a step back. The way that I work with my clients is we work on two levels. So we work on things that have to do with mindset, which is largely what's going on in our conscious mind. But we also work on things that have to do with our subconscious mind and our healing, because that's 80 to 90% of what we're attracting into our life and how we're making our decisions, even though we think that that's mostly in our conscious mind. And our wounds actually live in our subconscious mind, which is the realm of energy healing and energy work. It has to be done there. The first things that I do with my clients when we're working together is I teach them muscle testing because muscle testing is what helps them understand what's actually in their subconscious mind so that they know the difference between a story that they're telling themselves consciously and a belief they actually hold in their conscious mind. Because that's where we need to work. We need to work with what's true, what's really true for you, not what you think is true for you, right? But that also has to come from you. So we have to get to the root of it. We have to get to the truth of it. Usually there are three main areas where we need to do energy work. One is we need to heal the 5 wounds that are usually left after a breakup. The 5 wounds that I see over and over again, and you can have one of them, you can have all 5 of them, any combination of them. But the 5 wounds that I usually see after a breakup are fear, anger, confusion, grief, and shame. And most people have some combination of those 5 wounds. So I work with my clients on healing those. I actually have an audio program called the Overnight Heartache Cure where we do a lot of that work. The second thing that I'm doing with my clients is that I am helping them to actually cut energetic cords that are between them and another person. And that is an experience that's kind of difficult to describe, but it's kind of like surgery for your aura, where we don't cut the bond between you and another person. We cut more like the sewer line that's between you and another person. So it's where all of the doubt and all of the anger and all of the fear and all of the resentment and all of those all of that low vibration energy, it lives as an energetic structure between us and another person. It's not something that we can use affirmations all day and it's just going to disappear. It's an energetic structure between us and another person. Affirmations are fantastic and they have their place, but affirmations take at least 30 days of repetition of hundreds of times consistently before they get from the level of your conscious mind to your subconscious mind where they can actually do the work. And most people get bored by like day 4 or 5. So it's not that affirmations don't work, it's just that they're kind of clunky to use. And then the third thing that we do is that we actually we bring in healthy beliefs and we clear out limiting beliefs. So for example, a limiting belief would be something that's like, I'm too old for love. You know, sometimes that's a really common one that clients will have is I'm too old for love. Nobody wants to date a single mother is one that I'll have, or men will always be intimidated by me. Once he gets to know me, he'll reject me. those are always big ones. Or if I if I am not perfect, he'll reject me, those kinds of things. And we need to clear those beliefs out on a deep subconscious level, because again, you can all day long be like, it's okay. I've read articles that say that there are lots of people out there, that are for me, that love is out there in the world. But we're saying that with the 10 to 20% of ourselves that's in our conscious mind, while that 80 to 90% of our subconscious mind is calling BS and going, I don't believe a word of that. No way. I don't believe that. And digging in its heels, right? So when we try to move forward without doing that deeper energy work, it's like trying to drive with the parking brake on, right? It's like we can't really move forward. So we do that deeper part. And then there are other things that come up that, I mean, you can have a vow of marriage to someone that you were never legally married to, that we need to clear, or else it's going to always feel like you're cheating on a husband or a spouse. And there's going to be someone else in the place of, like in the marriage place in your life. There's going to be someone else standing in that place. And so that person needs to be released. You can have contracts, you can have soul contracts with someone that need to
That's
be
so good.
completed, you know. So there are lots of things. You can have a vow of celibacy that you took at a certain point in your life, not officially,
Mhm.
but that you have spiritually. So those are some things that need to be healed. And those are energetic things. People don't talk about those kinds of things. They talk about, we're so used to thinking like, what can I do? What can I do? Like, how can I do something different? But love is different than pretty much any other goal that you would have. We're used to being able to hustle, like if I get a trainer and I get the right nutrition plan, I can meet my health goals, right? Like if I get my resume out there, I get I do my networking, I'll get the career that I want, those kinds of things, right? Love doesn't work like that. We don't make love happen. We make love welcome. And we
Mm.
make it welcome by doing that deeper healing, because that changes our vibration. So it's coming to us. If you can imagine, there's like a rubber band and it's being
Mhm.
held like this, right? It's not like you have to make the rubber band come to you, right? You just have to let go of this part so it comes to you. It's already the energy that would make it come to you. It wants to come to you. So we're getting rid of the thing that's holding it, you know. That's what
That's
we're
so, I
doing.
love that analogy. That's so good. And I think too, when you talked about affirmations and, you see women, and some men too, but mostly women putting on their social medias how they're manifesting love, and but without doing the work that you just described. And so
Yeah.
do you think that, it's possible? Do you think it's healthy, to go in without doing that work before?
No. Short answer, no. Because
Yeah.
what happens is either we attract it but can't, either we don't attract it at all, we go for these long stretches where we don't attract it at all, and that just deepens our negative beliefs,
Yeah.
because we don't realize we're attracting self-confirming evidence. We don't believe it's possible on a deep level, so it's not possible. The universe always says yes, right? It's a system of laws. It's not personal. you know it's not, it's different than God, but that's a whole other discussion. Like God is different from the universe in the way that your spirit is different from your body, right? But that's, like I said, that's a different discussion. But either it doesn't happen, the person doesn't come into our lives, or they come into our lives but they're just the same as they all, we're attracting the same relationship, same person with a different face over and over and over again. Or we attract the new thing, but
You can't
we
keep it.
are so terrified by how different it is, and we're the tension of waiting for the other shoe to drop is so strong that we self-sabotage and it falls apart, and then we take that as evidence that we're not worth loving.
Oh, that's
you know
good. Yep.
so it's usually one of those things that happens if we don't do that healing work. I've had people, one of the things that I do is, once we've done the healing work, now you can do things like love lists and things like that. Love lists, if you do a love list before you've done the healing work, you're only going to put things on the list that you think are possible.
Yep.
If you do the healing first, it's going to expand what you think is possible, what you know is now possible, and what you start to see in the world. Now you can make a love list that's based on that, not your limiting beliefs about what you think that you could have or what you should have, right? So we always do that healing work first, and then we do a love list. And
Mm,
there's a reason for that. But when we do that work, it's just really important that we understand how important that healing component is to it. It takes I have so many people who have wanted to skip ahead to just do the love list, right? And I try to not share all the details about doing the love list because I don't want people to think like, let me just get this and run with it. I had a woman I was working with, she did the love list. I want to say I stopped counting after 15 times. So she did it the first, and the thing about it is that you're using a universal principle that works. It's a universal law and it works. You're just writing an order to the universe saying, this is what I want. Universe always says yes. You don't always recognize it when it shows up in your life because you met something else, but the universe always says yes, right? She used the love list, it must have been 15 times. And every time she would do it, that person who matched it would show up. And every time she'd go, yeah, but they don't have this or this or this or this or that quality. So then she'd update it, right? And that person would fade out of her life and then another person would come. And in the span of about a year, she used it 15 times and went on like, I don't know, I want to say between 35, 40 dates and just kind of kept updating it. And I was like, you know, like at a certain point, you have to stop. It's like a genie in a lamp, right? But you don't know what to ask for.
mhm.
So you just keep asking for stuff, and what you're getting is not satisfying you. And you need to ask, why is this not satisfying me? What do I really want? Instead of just continuing to ask, you know?
Yeah, that's
So
so
that's
good. And I
probably,
think too, it's like I find that a lot of times women don't fully know themselves. They haven't even given themselves permission to learn themselves, you know?
and they
And
don't often have the space in their lives to
yes,
do that work.
exactly, exactly. Wow, this is so good, so good. And it's just such great information because I know, I mean, I remember the list, back in college, my track coach, shout out to my track coach at UCLA, Jeanette Bolden. She had a therapist out there for the girls on the track. And one of the things that she talked about was creating a list, where she was talking about dating and, um, and so on the list, she had said, make a list of 10, excuse me, 15 things that you wanted in your guy. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we barely know ourselves. We're like 18, but I was like, sure, I'll go through the exercise. But I thought it was one thing I thought that she said was really interesting and kind of stuck with me. She's like, in any, kind of situation, you're not going to get everything. And so
Yeah.
there's going to be some form of a compromise. She's like, so I want you to take away like she told us the number, I think it was 5 things to get to 10. And people were like, I can't take away 5 things on this list, like I need all 15. And so I'll never forget that because it was so funny. But when I thought about it, I was like, she said, so anybody that comes to you that's like a 7 or below is
Mhm.
probably not your person.
Mm.
And so now whether or not that's true or not, I don't know, but it's really interesting. The list has been, people have been
Well,
doing it forever.
absolutely. It's a manifesting tool that is
Yeah.
centuries old because when we have clarity
Yeah.
and we have gratitude in advance for the outcome we want, that's a very powerful vibration. That's an order we're putting out to the universe. And if you think of the universe as this giant warehouse where anything that you can think of exists, you just have to be clear about your order, right? But the problem is that we're not clear about our order. And part of that is because of what you said in terms of we don't know ourselves a lot of times. The other thing is that if we've never experienced having that kind of a partner, how do we know what to ask for in a partner
So
that's like
good.
that? We don't know what that feels like. We've never experienced it, so we're asking for something we've never had before, and it's hard to kind of create the details around that sometimes. So in one way, the love list can be, part of our purpose as evolving human beings
Mhm.
is to learn how to be powerful manifestors. And part of that is clarity. So that's one of the things that really the love list does is it forces us to be clear about our intentions. It forces us to speak our intentions clearly into the world, you know, and in that respect, it can be a really powerful tool because you use it. Let's say you've used it, now you've manifested this situation. Well, now you have some experience to draw from to say, you know what I forgot to include in my list? I don't like it when people smoke. I forgot to say I need to have a partner who has the same commitment to their health that I do. I didn't get that part on my list. I didn't think of it because I've never, had a partner like this before, right? And then people go, they're worried because they're like, well, then does that mean I have to let go of this partner? There are all of these other questions that come up that I help people work through, but it is a really powerful tool for teaching us to lean into our purpose, which is to become really clear-eyed about manifesting with intention.
That's so good. I'm so curious about like once you've identified, the person that you want to go forth with, it's mutual because we start there, make sure it's mutual.
Consent.
And
Let's
yeah,
mention
yeah,
consent.
exactly. And I so believe in like co-creating your life. Like I was just
Yeah.
watching like Whoopi Goldberg talk about how she'll never get married again. And the person she was talking to, I forgot who she was talking to, but he's married and he was like, you'll never get married again. Like, why? Why? And she was like, well, first of all, I don't care what you think, and I actually love her answer,
Mhm.
like I love that she knows herself enough to know that that's just not for her.
Mhm.
And so, I believe like anytime you're co-creating, it's so important to do what works for you and that partner, and not, what worked for Sally and Bob or Jim and Becky or, Jim and Jim even, like, and so
Yeah.
like I'm would love to hear you kind of talk about, the importance of, co-creating your life together and how people can even start doing that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is, when you're with someone who's right for you, kind of knowing that you're with the right person, there's a feeling of almost like recognition. So it feels like your spirits kind of recognize each other and you actually help each other do your work in the world that you're here to do and to use your
Oh,
gifts.
so good.
You help each other do that. And that feels natural and it feels fulfilling and it feels easy. And you're like, of course I would want to do that with you. And that other person's like, of course I want to do that for you. And from there, it's things like it kind of already has a good momentum from there because that's what you're working from. But the things that trip people up are when we forget why we loved each other because we go through a stressful situation. We forget like these are the things that I love about you. When we grow and we don't grow together, when one of us is committed to growth and the other person isn't. And even the idea that we have to be together forever, that I will not love you anymore if this doesn't go the way I want it to in my head. My love is conditional in that um, if you don't satisfy my needs within this relationship anymore, I can't love you. Because you can let someone go because it's best for both of you and you're not evolving together anymore and it's not healthy for you anymore without having to hate them, you know? And that the idea that love can only show up for you in that form is as that person. And if that doesn't work out, love will never be able to show up for you in another form again, is a concept that is really rooted in kind of like the way that we think about dating, the way that we think about love, even the way that we think about soulmates. And that can be really difficult, or even the idea that like
Love
your
that.
relationship has to look like it has to have the same progression from this step to this step to this step to this step. It has to look like everyone else's relationship, all of those kinds of things. Those are the things that really keep us from being able to deepen our love
Mhm.
for a soulmate, in that kind of a relationship.
Yeah, I love what you said. And I'm a firm believer in releasing in love, like regardless of, whether it's a friend, could even be a family member, that's
Yeah.
just not right. to be in your life, or like you said, a partner.
Mhm.
And it's okay like to love people from a distance in a different way. Like I don't have like any hate in my heart. Like I release everyone in love, and I'm like, I wish them well, genuinely, like
Yeah.
not fake, like genuine. Like I want to see everybody win, but I also realize that you only have so much space, in your life up close.
Yeah.
Like you have
You
a
also can't
ton,
you also
you know.
can't allow someone to continue to be in your life
Yep.
that's doing things that are unhealthy for you.
Yes.
Or if you have kids, you have to be thinking about, is this the example of love that I want them to grow up thinking is normal and real and healthy? Is this the way I want them to think that people should love and relate to each other? Is this what I want them to grow up to do? You
Mhm.
know, so sometimes it's that where it's like, I love you and I want you to be okay and I want the best for you and you deserve to be loved, but this situation is not, it's this is not the business. This isn't going to do it. You need to, what is Iona Van Zant said something where she was like, your good is elsewhere.
Yes,
Go
I
and
love
see.
that. That's so good. And then go do your
Your
work. That's our
good
other
is,
line. Go do
yeah,
your work.
go
Yeah,
do your work.
I love it. It's so
You
but
know,
it's so true, and like I have children now, and that's been, a challenge. Like in the sense, it's beautiful. I love my children, but I'm also dating not just for myself, but also for them, and making sure that, you know, the person I bring in aligns with those things. Like, when I look at them, I'm like, do I want my son to grow up to be like that man?
like this man.
Do I want
Yeah.
my daughter to date someone like that man? And
Yeah.
if the answer is no, which it has been in the past, it's like we're not going to make it, So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and and I also see it as a gift. I'm like, this person gets three hearts that are gonna just we're like 10-gallon full of love over here. So like
Yeah.
you're gonna get so much love, but I also need it in return, and
Right.
so and really like I'm thinking, and maybe it's morbid, I shouldn't think like this, but I think like, what if something happens to me?
Yeah.
Like, would this person take care of my kids, or
Yeah. Can
continue
I
to
entrust
love and support? Yeah,
these precious
you know,
people to this
it's a lot of
person?
pressure, when I think about dating as a single, mom. And
Yeah.
so like, could you talk to about that a little bit? Like, because I'm sure some of your clients,
Oh,
have come
yeah.
to you in this
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely. Well, one of the things that I have found is that dating a parent, dating another parent is shorthand for so many things because they understand what your priorities are, time wise, energy wise, all of those things. They have those same priorities, and you understand what theirs are. And I find really often that when there's a single person that's dating a parent, there can be this resentment that's created because if you're a single parent and you're dating, the person you're dating is not your number one priority, period. And that's just real. And that will work for some people, and for other people, it won't. So if you are a single parent, sometimes dating someone who is also a parent is a great thing. But it also depends on what their relationship with their kids is like. Are they active in their children's lives? Are they a presence in their children's lives?
Absolutely.
It's not a flex if someone's avoiding their responsibilities so that they can prioritize you.
Mhm.
And I've seen so many people with that kind of mindset of like that, oh look, but he chose me. Well, and then those kids are going to grow up and they're going to need a lot of healing and a lot of help because
Mhm.
of that decision. So that's a really big part of it is like dating somebody who gets that.
Yeah.
Dating a parent is usually a really good way to just know that you have some really baseline understanding of each other's priorities and time, and that sometimes your schedule is going to change at the last minute and that has to be okay, you know. Um, and also I've just found like as a single woman, as a single mom, that like there are some men who really just all like my friend Paul is so amazing. When Paul was married for maybe 20 years, He and his ex-wife had two kids. Their kids grew up, went to college, everything. And then Paul and Dolores got married. And between when Paul and Dolores got divorced and when Paul got married to his current wife, we had a conversation where he was sharing with my community actually about, because he's such a healthy, emotionally mature person. I wanted to show him to my community that, look, they're out there, ladies. They really are, you know. And one of the things that he said was, he was like, Carissa, I just always thought of myself as a married man. Even when I was divorced, he said, I just felt like a married man who was between wives. He's like, I just always thought of myself as a partner and part of a family. Like that's what I've always wanted to be, you
Yeah.
know? And I think part of it is realizing that there really are men that are out there like that.
Mm-hmm.
They really are out there. And realizing that not only are they out there, but they're around you. Like they're out there. They're the three ways that I see people come into your life. Like when I'm working with a client, almost 90% of my clients attract a happy, healthy relationship within about 6 months of us working together. And the three ways that I see that happen, it's not online, but the three ways that I see that happen are usually someone from their past will show up in a new way in their life. So it might be like when our kids were in elementary school, we were both married to other people, but we knew each other because our kids were, in the same class, whatever. Now we're both divorced, and then we meet up, and it's like, oh wow, this is great, right? That's one way. Another way is that it's someone who's in your life right now, but you're not used to thinking of them that way. And maybe something new happens, and now you see each other in a new light. Maybe they speak up for you in a setting and you find out about it or something like that. And you're like, wow, he's a good guy. Like I never really, and then you find out, he's interested, and before you were just used to thinking of him maybe as a colleague or a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is where you have someone that you both know in common right now, but you don't realize it. So it's like your cousin's best friend and you've just never
Yeah.
met them, or your colleague's brother or somebody like that. you know and then you end up connecting, and you don't have to go out and make those things happen. What happens is you're doing the healing, you're doing the clarity, you're doing deep self-love. It raises that vibration, and you've put out your order with this higher vibration, and then those circumstances align and that person comes into your life. It's not a thing of like, now go out and try one of these three ways and see if you can make it happen. Get busy on Facebook and do that, social detective work. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, that's not the work that I mean when I say that you need to do the work. It's the healing part of it. It's the clarity part of it and the self-love part. Those are really, really huge.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh.
that's the best advice I would give to single women is like, date other parents, realize that they're out there. You're not in a rush. You're not in a hurry. Take your time, be clear about what you want, and realize that you're not asking for too much. You really aren't. And you are worthy of being taken care of in the same way that you're taking care of everyone else. And there's someone out there who wants to do that for you and can, in the way that feels like love for you.
I love that. Such beautiful advice. And, I have seen it where single men have come in and stepped up
Mhm.
and, as well as parents, like you mentioned. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I love that advice.
It's more likely that a single man can come into a situation where a woman has children
Yep.
than that a single woman comes into a situation
Yes.
where a man has children. Because there's something about me not being his number one priority that doesn't sit well for me. There's something that happens where women have to heal this thing, and it's usually like a daddy thing that has to get healed.
Mm,
Because otherwise you might, if you feel a really intense resentment and it doesn't make sense to you and you don't understand it, and you don't want it to be there, but you feel it, that you're not his priority because his kids are, there's a daddy wound that needs to be healed, and please don't date until you heal that.
yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh my gosh, we can do a whole nother show on wounds. It would be so good. You have to come back. But
Daddy wounds, 5 breakup wounds,
like,
you
oh
know,
my God, and mother wounds, like
mother
all of
wounds,
it. Like, oh
absolutely.
my
Like
gosh. Yeah, we'll have to do another quick show on that. But
that would be great.
you mentioned, taking care of yourself and also clients, making sure they take care of themselves and self-love. How do you take care of yourself when you're taking care of all of these, amazing women out there? Like how are you fueling yourself back up, in order to be able to serve? What do you do?
Well, therapists have therapists, right? Doctors go to doctors, healers have healers, right? So that's an important component. Coaches have coaches, all those things, right? Yeah. But another part of it is I try to make sure that there are like basic kind of tenets of self-care
Mhm.
that I always try to check in with. One is like, and they're really like, when I say basic, I mean basic, but we overlook them all the time. One is water, like drinking enough water. We're always like, oh yeah, I need to drink more water, right? But we don't. So that's one of the things. Another one is rest, like getting enough sleep, right? And that's like a basic one. It's like, can I go to bed a little bit earlier? If I don't have anything going on for the rest of the night, I will just take it. It can be 6 o'clock at night. I'll take a bath and put my comfiest pajamas on, and I will just be in bed, and I'm done for today. you
Oh, that's
know,
so good.
that's one of the things. And another thing is nourishment. I don't like fad diets. I don't like restrictive things. I don't like deprivation. So I'm thinking, what do I eat that makes my body feel nourished? Is it like some salmon? Like salmon is really rich. It's not a kind of thing where you're like, I'm eating salmon and I feel deprived, things like that. So it's those are the three big things that I do because I need that to function on a basic level. Like if I don't have those things going on, I just go into like my energy really declines and I can't really be present as much for my clients or for my daughter or for myself, you know.
So
So
good.
those are the
So,
three main things.
yeah, but you mentioned they're so basic, but I mean, people forget them daily, So I
You can
love
ask
that you
100 people
mentioned.
right now,
Oh, I
how are you
know.
on these three things? And we'd find like four people that were like, I'm rocking those three indicators.
100%. Yeah, and I can imagine like you mentioned energy and having a healer, like you carrying people's energy, so how do you release that?
I don't carry people's energy. I
That's
had to learn that as an empath, it's not about that. I don't carry people's energy. In the beginning, before I was more of a skilled empath, I would carry energy, but I would find myself, two things happened. One, I would cry with them during the session, and I couldn't get enough distance to be in perspective. I can't like I need to be able to sit next to you and put my arm around your shoulders while you're crying,
Yeah.
right? If you're in a hole, I need to be able to help you come up. I can't jump down in that hole with you and cry. And now we're just sitting on the ground crying. Right. So, like, I had to learn that because so I am very careful with my energy hygiene that I connect to do specific things with consent and then come out. So that's one thing. Because I found that I would cry a lot. I would have no energy at the end of the day, and I gained a lot of weight. And part of that is because when you're a healer, if you are always somewhere else, your body is constantly trying to pull you back in and go, hey, remember me, and let's have some sugar so you remember that it feels good to be here in your body. Like that constantly happens, especially like when you're a newer healer and not quite as skilled. So those are things that I do to not, I need to be in a place where um, energetically, I'm practicing good energy hygiene. I practice really clear ethics. I'm always getting consent with my clients. I only work with the things that are in my purview. I'm not trying to, I'm very comfortable saying, I'm not sure about that, but let's get an answer for you. You know, um, yeah, so those are things that I do to really
So
have a
good.
healthy relationship and healthy boundaries with my clients. Because that's not only am I trying to help them heal, but I'm trying to model for them,
Mhm.
what that looks like and feels like, you know.
That's so beautiful. And I feel the same way. I don't carry anyone's energy. Like, and I had to teach myself that because that was not always the case. And so, and it took a lot of practice for me. So I love that you mentioned that. Well, the last question I have, I could sit here and talk to you all day. You know that I just adore you. But the last question I have is where can people find you and are you taking new clients right now?
I am taking new clients right now.
Wonderful.
I think at this point, I think I have room for like 2 new clients over the summer.
Okay.
And the way that the best thing for people to do is to go to soullovesession.com, and then they can book an intro session with me where we can actually talk about what they need, and I can get an idea of where their heart is. And then another thing that they can do is, people, you can, I use the word stalk, but it's I mean, you can stalk me, you can check out my socials. I'm at CarissaMontooth.com. I know that sometimes you'll like hear someone and you'll be like, I want to see what they're all about. You know what I mean? Before I do something, I need to get an idea what this person's about. You can go to my YouTube channel, you can watch my videos. I've probably got 100 videos on my YouTube channel. You can go to my Insta, it's Carissa Love Healer. So those are ways that you can learn more about me. But to connect, you would go to soullovesession.com. And you can also find my Facebook group, which is called Secret Seduction Sorority. So if you go there, that is my free Facebook group where you can come in, get an idea of, you can kind of scroll through and see what some of the posts are, and some of the group healing that we've done in there as well.
Really, really great advice. And please check her out. She is the real deal. I mean, literally, the moment I heard you on Pedro's podcast, I was like, I got to get in touch with her. I just need to know her. So you have such beautiful energy. And I know I tell you this every time,
Likewise.
but I really always enjoy being in your energy. So thank you so much for blessing Sunday Soul Day. Everyone, have a beautiful, beautiful Sunday. Thank you, Carissa.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.